I'm Maria Dixon, daughter to Major General Dixon and business tycoon, Elizabeth Dixon. I never knew being intelligent and smart could attract so much jealousy and envy amongst my peers. That night I saw 3 boys broke inside my lodge in school. They were all masked. I was afraid. I tried to scream but they zipped my mouth. When they were done, they left. And I suffered it. I noticed some changes. Oh God. Help me. Doctor said a baby is growing inside of me. This isn't just a story you hear often. This is emotional, heartbreaking, sad yet very motivational. Stay tuned as I take you through the journey of my life. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, do well to subscribe, like, and hit on notifications. To all my returning subscribers, thanks for stopping by. Let us begin. People often say that life is like a journey, filled with both sunshine and storms. For the longest time, I thought I was walking only in the sunshine. I was born into a loving and disciplined home. My father, Major General Dixon, is a man of honor and strength. He raised me to walk with confidence but always with kindness. My mother, Elizabeth, is a brilliant businesswoman with a heart as wide as the ocean. Together, they gave me everything I needed, not just in material things, but in values, wisdom, and the courage to dream big. From a young age, I loved learning. Books fascinated me. I didn't just want to memorize facts, I wanted to understand the world, to feel connected to stories and ideas that lived beyond my own. I was never the loudest in class, but I worked hard, asked questions, and always tried to help others. My teachers noticed. My parents were proud. And when I got into one of the best high schools in Las Vegas, they believed I was ready for anything. At school, I kept my focus. I wasn't interested in distractions. I had goals. To graduate with honors, to study abroad, and one day to serve people through science and innovation. I made a few close friends, the kind who celebrated small victories with me and stood by me during stressful exams. But not everyone saw me as just a student. I started to notice strange looks from some students, especially from a group of boys in my class. At first, I thought it was harmless teasing, maybe just high school behavior. They would try to talk to me in ways that made me uncomfortable. I politely ignored them, thinking it would pass. I wasn't rude, I just didn't give them the attention they seemed to want. I had seen enough to know that being polite doesn't mean you owe anyone your time. Over time, I began to hear whispers, things said just low enough that I couldn't catch every word, but I could feel their sting. Some students began to treat me differently, as though my success was something to be ashamed of. I had never tried to outshine anyone. I just worked hard because I believed in my future. There were days I came home and cried silently in my room, not because I was weak, but because I was confused. Why did doing the right thing seem to make some people hate me? My mother would always say, when your light shines, don't be surprised if others try to dim it. But keep shining. You were made for more. Those words became my strength. I became the top student in the school, receiving the award for overall best in academics during my junior year. I remember standing on the stage, holding the plaque in my hands, and feeling this deep sense of joy. I glanced into the audience and saw my parents beaming with pride. That was one of the happiest moments of my life. But happiness, as I later found out, can sometimes invite envy in ways you don't expect. The same 3 boys who once laughed behind my back, who rolled their eyes when I spoke in class, now seemed even colder toward me. There was a moment, one afternoon, when I was walking down the hallway and passed them. They fell silent. One of them gave me a look that sent a chill down my spine, not anger, not sadness, but something deeper. Something darker. I tried to brush it off. I reminded myself that I was safe, that I had a loving home, and that I had done nothing wrong. That week, I stayed late in the library preparing for a big science project. I returned to my dorm room exhausted but proud of my progress. I had no idea what was waiting for me in the shadows of that school, how envy could twist into something so cruel. But this chapter of my life wasn't only about pain. It was about the girl I was before everything changed, the girl who believed in light, who believed in good people, and who refused to dim her shine just to fit in. I held my head high, not because I was perfect, but because I knew who I was. That is how I want you to remember me in this chapter. Maria Dixon, a girl who walked with dreams in her heart and fire in her soul, even before the storm came. It was a quiet night, the kind that usually comforts me. The campus was calm, and most students were already in their rooms. I had stayed up a little later than usual, finishing up a research paper I was excited to submit. I remember the gentle hum of my desk lamp and the sound of my pen scratching across the page. Life still felt normal then. Afterwards, I turned off the light, climbed into bed, and whispered a prayer like I always did. I asked for strength, guidance, and peace for the next day. Then I drifted off, unaware that everything I knew about safety and trust was about to be shattered. Sometime in the middle of the night, I felt a sudden weight on my chest. My eyes snapped open to darkness and fear. There were hands holding me down, a cloth pressed tightly against my mouth, muffling my screams. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might burst. I couldn't see their faces, only the shadows of three masked figures. Their eyes were cold. Their voices were hushed and cruel. I fought. I did everything I could to resist. But I was outnumbered, overpowered, and terrified. I kept screaming beneath the cloth, hoping someone would hear me. No one did. It was over within minutes, but those minutes felt like a lifetime. When they finally left, they disappeared into the night as if nothing had happened. I lay there, frozen, my mind spinning. I wanted to believe it was a nightmare, but my body told me it was real. I pulled the covers around me and cried in silence, too afraid to move. The next morning, I couldn't pretend. I gathered the courage to go straight to the head of the school. My hands trembled as I spoke. I told the truth, every word of it. The school administration listened, but their faces were filled with doubt and confusion. They checked the security footage, but the cameras had been tampered with. No clear evidence. No names. I felt helpless. But then I remembered who I was. I was Maria. My parents raised me to speak up, no matter how hard it was. So I called my mother. I will never forget the sound of her voice when she realized what had happened. She didn't cry at first. She just said, "Stay where you are. We're coming." My father was in uniform the next morning. His presence alone was powerful, calm, controlled, but fierce. He looked me in the eyes and said, "No one does this to my daughter," and walks away. That's when I knew something had shifted. I was no longer alone. Later that week, I started feeling sick. I thought it was just stress or lack of sleep, but deep inside, a fear began to grow. My mother took me to the hospital. The nurses were kind, the doctor gentle. Then came the words I never expected to hear at 17. "Maria, you're pregnant." Everything around me went silent. I stared at the doctor, hoping he would take it back, say it was a mistake. But the truth was already there, written in my body. I went home that night feeling broken. I sat on my bed and stared out the window, trying to find peace in the stars. But I couldn't stop the thoughts. How could this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? Would I ever be the same? My parents sat on either side of me. My mother held my hand, and my father placed his arm around my shoulders. For a while, none of us spoke. Then my father said something I will always remember. Maria, what happened to you was evil. But you are not broken. You are not ruined. And we will not let darkness win. He began his own investigation that night. With his military connections and resources, he demanded that the school cooperate fully. Interviews were conducted. Dorm logs were examined. Even the smallest pieces of evidence were traced. And then, slowly, the truth began to surface. One of the boys had left behind a mistake, a piece of fabric that carried DNA. Another student, frightened by guilt, came forward anonymously and said they had seen 3 classmates sneaking out that night. Their names were whispered. My father took those names and didn't rest until he got answers. It took weeks of determination and pressure, but finally, the 3 boys were identified, arrested, and charged. I didn't attend the court hearings, but I heard everything. They tried to deny it. They blamed each other. But the evidence spoke louder than their lies. They were sentenced and sent away to serve their time. Justice, in some form, was served. But inside me, a different battle had just begun. I was now a girl carrying both a life and a deep wound. I had choices to make, emotions to face, and a future to rediscover. Still, I had one thing no one could take from me, the will to rise. This chapter of my life was filled with fear, but it was also filled with truth, and truth has power. I told my story, and the world listened. Not everyone, but enough. That night changed me forever. But it didn't destroy me. It made me stronger. The months that followed felt like walking through a thick fog. Some days I would wake up and forget, just for a second, everything that had happened. But the memories would return, quiet but sharp. It wasn't just what those boys did, it was what I had to carry because of it, the fear, the shame, the questions, and now, a growing life inside me. There were days I sat in silence, unsure of who I was anymore. The once confident, determined Maria felt like a distant version of myself. I'd walk past mirrors and not recognize the girl staring back. Was she still brave? Was she still whole? But healing, I learned, isn't about forgetting. It's about rebuilding. Not all at once, not with certainty, but piece by piece. I stayed home for a while after the incident. My school allowed me to take my classes remotely while I recovered both physically and emotionally. My parents were my strength during those days. My mother would bring me tea in the mornings, sit by my side without saying a word, just being present. My father, even after long hours at work, would take time every night to check on me, to remind me that what happened was never my fault. When the media caught wind of the case, our names were protected, but the story spread quickly. People whispered. Some praised my courage. Others judged from a distance. I tried not to let it break me. I stayed off social media. I focused on my healing, on therapy, on prayer, and slowly, on preparing for a future I never expected, motherhood. At first, I didn't know if I could do it, raise a child born from such darkness. I thought about everything that could go wrong. But one night, lying on my bed, I placed my hand on my stomach and felt a small flutter. A tiny kick. A heartbeat, not of pain, but of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't cry from sadness. I cried because I knew this child was not to blame. This child was innocent. And maybe, just maybe, this child could be part of my healing, not my shame. I decided to carry the pregnancy to term. Not everyone understood my choice, but I didn't need them to. I was doing it for me, for my heart, and for a child who deserved love. 9 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I named her Hope. Hope changed everything. She didn't erase my past, but she gave me a reason to look forward. Every time I held her in my arms, I was reminded that I was still capable of love, strength, and purpose. She became my reason to rise each day, to continue my studies, and to speak out, not just for me, but for every girl who has ever suffered in silence. I went back to school after a year, not as the girl everyone once knew, but as a survivor. I graduated with honors. My classmates had changed. So had I. But now, I walked with my head higher, not in pride, but in strength. Over time, I began to share my story more openly. With young girls in schools, with support groups, and eventually at conferences where survivors spoke about their healing journeys. Each time I spoke, I saw eyes widen, tears fall, and hands slowly rise to say, "Me too." That's when I realized, my voice was never just mine. It was meant to be shared. Justice had been served in court, yes. But the deeper justice came in breaking the silence. In saying, "You are not alone." In helping others find their voice before fear could take it from them. Now, years later, I sit with Hope by my side. She is a bright, curious child, with my eyes and her grandfather's courage. I tell her stories of strength and kindness. One day, when she's old enough, I will tell her the full story, not just of what happened to me, but of how I rose from it. How light returned. How she was part of that light. To any girl or woman reading this, let me tell you, your story matters. Your pain is valid. And your healing is possible. Even if it takes time. Even if it's messy. Even if you don't know where to start. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. I chose to rise. And so can you. Have you ever imagined yourself in this kind of situation? And I know so many things could be going on in your mind. What did you do about it? And I hope this story motivates you today. Choose to rise today and never choose to be a victim of falling. Remember you're specially made and nothing can stop you on the way. Subscribe to this channel, like, and hit on notifications for more interesting stories like this.